officer for the Huntington District of the Army Corps of Engineers.
Correct.
So we're going to talk a little bit today about water safety and boating safety, which, you know, is big in our area with the lakes and rivers and all that, but also with people going on summer vacations, that also comes into play.
This is the time of year most people just kind of want to be on vacation, be around the water, and tend to not think as much. They want to go have fun, and that's where they usually get in trouble, out here on the water. One of the most important things we like to preach about being safe in the water is one of the best things your children can do to prevent themselves from being a drowning statistic is to learn to swim. That's one of the statistical things that's shown that most of drownings occur to people who don't know how to swim. They've just suddenly found themselves in water over their head and don't know what to do. People panic around the shore if there's someone there. So it's one of the things we don't necessarily focus on teaching swimming. We outreach to other agencies or folks like the YMCA or even family members that know how to swim. Teach your kids how to swim, get them comfortable in the water.
Yeah.
And that can help out tremendously in the long run and benefit them for the rest of their life.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be necessarily, like you said, formal swim lessons, you know, just to be comfortable in the water and...
Right, yeah, even, you know, people, little kids, when I do water safety programs, will tell me, I don't know how to swim, but I can doggy paddle. Oh, as long as you're staying afloat and in motion, that's swimming. Mm-hmm. Dogs are swimmers.
Yeah.
And cats are too. They're all good swimmers. So that's it, to get comfortable in the water. Okay. Correct. Second most important thing I think kids can do is to learn to wear that life jacket. You know, a properly fitting life jacket is essential. One that's comfortable, that they're going to want to wear when they're out there on the water, and fit it tight, snug around there so it doesn't come off their shoulders or float off if their arms go up for help in the water and float off of them. It's not going to do them any good.
And so do you see people maybe with floats or little boogie boards and that kind of thing who are not using their life vest? I mean, is it still important whenever you're out using floats and other things in the water to also wear a life vest?
Yeah, it is. You know, you can't rely on any one thing. A boogie board, for example, you're out there on or a life raft or something. If you would fall off of it, those things tend to scoot away from you a pretty good distance. They'll flip and float away from you. It's not going to do any good unless it's within arm's reach. So if you had that life jacket on, you suddenly found your enemy, you pop your head up, you're going to be floating, not struggling for something to keep you afloat if you don't know how to swim, or you can get something to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, are there different types of life jackets? Are there some that are more appropriate or less appropriate?
There are different types. The main thing is to get something that's Coast Guard approved. It's got to have that UL emblem on it. And a Coast Guard number. They're saying it's, you know, U.S. Coast Guard approved to be acceptable by the state agencies that really are the requirers of that. You know, you have kind of you have federal boating regulations and you have the individual state boating regulations, and I get where I'm working Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia, it's kind of hard to keep those specifics separate, and I don't want to give out misinformation when I'm talking to somebody talking about Kentucky laws, you know, and tell them the West Virginia laws and then go back to Kentucky and get in trouble. So, you know, I always say, you know, consult with your local state, you know, your local and state boating laws. That should pretty much cover, and then you got your federal umbrella, you know, laws that umbrella everything underneath of it.
So if somebody is unsure about the laws in their area, where can they go to find that information?
Get on the web and go to your local Department of Natural Resources website, or just, you know, if typically Googling up water safety information, you may get U.S. Safe Boating Council and all these, and those should provide different links to the different states, and in the midst of searching for that stuff, you're going to find a wealth of other information that may help answer some questions, specific questions that they may have out there.
What are the most common accidents and injuries you see that are water related?
Oh my, you know, it's grouped. They've gotten gotten pretty finite over the years in what they actually look and measure. You get back many moons ago, it's hard to capture all the statistics because for example, I think they didn't really start taking a strong look at alcohol-related fatalities and things involved with drownings or drug-related things with drownings until probably the early 2000s or something like that. So the 70s and 80s, all those statistics, some people did and some didn't. So there's some limited information, but it's kind of hard to compare, you know, the length of all these statistics with things when it's gotten more fine-tuned at looking at things, much like any statistical stuff you find. The more you learn, the more you say, oh man, we can separate this out more and get further information and kind of get in the weeds with it. To me, the most at-risk group out there is that 18 to 35-year-old single male. And being in that position at one time, I'm a little older than that now. I'd like to think I'm a little smarter, although I'm still a risk taker. Is you know, you can't tell us anything. You know, you can't tell people much of anything. How do we reach that group? I really don't know. It's because it's, you know, unless you have a law and you're going to hit me in my pocketbook, you know, with a ticket for not complying with mandatory wear or some other regulations like the seatbelt laws. You got, you know, you still have people that don't wear seatbelts in cars for one reason or another. And they don't really know why. They may have a reason or two, but, you know, why don't you want to be safe in water? It just kind of comes with the turf, I guess. But that is the most at-risk group, and that's you try to reach them with some shock factor stuff. Maybe they come around when they get in a situation or it hits close to home. And unfortunately, then it's too late. And you never want to get to that position. You'd like to think that you know, just telling people they're at risk and you need to do something about it. You can take it or leave it when you're in that 18, 35-year-old single male. So we tried youth and outreach. I love giving second to fourth graders programs because they're just interested. They're in that time of their life where they're just absorbing everything and learning. It's where I feel you can make a big difference if they learn at an early age to swim or hey mom, I need a life jacket if we're going to go out here on the boat, you know. And in West Virginia, for example, children under 12 when they're on a boat, unless they're in an enclosed cab, have to wear a life jacket. And this doesn't mean, you know, put on mom or dad's life jacket that's not going to fit you, that, you know, fall right down to the floor, or you pick them up by the shoulders with the life jacket, slides right off of them. It's not going to do that child any good. And the boating safety officers and the conservation officers are out. You know, they'll be probably hitting that pretty hard because a child under 12 doesn't really have a big say in the matter, and so it is a parental responsibility to keep your kids safe when you're out there on a boat or just out there swimming. In fact, there's more drownings related to swimming than there are actually to boating, and for different reasons. You know, most of that's even swimming in undesignated areas of lakes or rivers or places that aren't designated swim beaches. That doesn't mean you're not at risk if you go to a designated swim beach by any means.
But there's reasons that, you know, you all don't have people swimming in certain areas, that, you know, there could be something underneath the water that people can't see, or something like that, a type of hazard. Exactly. One of the biggest hidden hazards we have out here is well, it's not a hidden hazard, it's actually a pretty obvious hazard, and that's following too close or not giving these towboats out here their due. A full tow in front of a towboat is probably over 22,000 tons of goods and is a quarter-mile long, and they can't stop on a dime. It's like equivalent to a tandem or triple tractor trailer out there on a highway, and you're in a little sports car. You know, you're a lot more maneuverable, and you think, you know, well, I'll just get out of their way. Well, that trucker doesn't know that you even see him, or you know, the towboat operator. They've got big blind spots, and it takes them a long time to react. And so, you know, boaters can keep themselves by giving
giving the towboats a wide berth. Other watercraft, just paying attention to your surroundings. It's just not what's in front of you, but it's what's coming up behind you. And with the speed of some of the boats out here and stuff, it can things can happen pretty quick. I tell people when I'm teaching licensing government boat operators that you need to have your head spinning 360 degrees at all times. Be always aware of your surroundings, because people can come up behind you quick, much like an emergency vehicle, and you don't hear those sirens until they're right up on your tail. And if you're already making a move over in front of them, it can be disastrous. So you need to be cognizant of that. And the rivers are much like the highways. They are the nation's original highways, and original travel routes and stuff like that. There's just not any lines out there, but there are rules of the roads, and it's up to the boater. Know before you go. That's a big thing for a boater, would be to know before you go. Know what those rules are and adhere to them. Be courteous of others, respectful of others. I like to say, bring your brain with you when you come out on the river or on the water. Don't leave it on the kitchen table. You need it.
Yeah.
You need it. And the whole idea is to get you back home safe with your family.
Yeah, and so people are out having fun, and they're not necessarily, as maybe keen on those safety rules as they would be if they were.
We let our guards down because we want to have fun too. You got the responsibility of whoever's in your group or whatever, and sometimes, they're paying attention to that. But you turn your head for an instant. Small toddlers are real good for that. I mean, how many times has a mother lost track of their child in the grocery store, for instance? You turn your head for 5 seconds to look at the shelf and turn around. Where'd they go? And they've just ditched around the other corner, and you spend the next hour looking for them in the grocery store or something, and hope everything's fine. Well, when you're around a water environment, the consequences can be pretty bad.
So, say, for example, you get into a situation where you're in water and you realize that you're in trouble. What are some things people can do in that situation?
First off is keep a clear head. Don't panic if you're the one on the shore not in trouble. I mean, the person out there is stressed enough for both of you. And a typical, people don't know how to recognize a drowning person. They're not saying much of anything. They're struggling, look like they're a kid having fun sometimes, only if you can see their face, expression. They're struggling for a breath of air and doing everything they can to keep that head up and try to get that breath of air, including if that means climbing on top of you. So unless you're properly trained in life-saving techniques, never go. Reach, throw, row, don't go unless you're properly trained, because that much like the grandmother with adrenaline picking the car off her husband when the jack failed. People can get superhuman strength when they're panicked. And if that means climbing on top of you to get my breath of air, I'm doing it. I'm doing everything. You're coming up. I'm glad you're coming there, but as soon as you get within arm's reach of me, buddy, I'm climbing on top of you. And where are you going to go in the water if it's over your head too? You're going down. You may have a life jacket on to save the both of you, but people can get in big trouble with that. So reach an object to them. Try to talk to them. Say, hey, stand up. Can you stand up? And a lot of times they just stepped in deep, maybe just back a little too far, and they've struggled around enough. Now stand up. Get my head out of the water. I'm fine. If not, if you can't talk them and they're still struggling, reach something to them. There's plenty of chunks of driftwood and pop bottles, or a 2-liter bottle or a milk jug or something floating on there. Get it out there to them, something they can grab onto. It gives them a little flotation. And it's almost amazing that how they can calm down once they get something to keep their head up and quit struggling. A cooler, a picnic cooler, a lid of a cooler or something like that. Little objects that are laying around if you're picnicking on the shoreline that you can get out to somebody to throw. Old tire or something, push. You got to be aware of what you toss out to somebody, because you don't want to knock them in the head with it. But there are things usually available. A lot of drift on these things. Logs. Can you reach a log or a long stick out and help pull them in closer? It all situationally dependent. If you're in a boat and they find themselves in deep water out of your boat, one, be aware of where your propeller is on your boat and how you're faced. You don't want them getting around the backside of that. Pontoons, people falling off the front of a pontoon, going underneath the thing. be ready to kill that motor quick, you know, so you don't cause more damage or something. Or get a boat and go after them. That's the row part, or you know, as a last resort. Of course, that may take a little time or something like that, or direct somebody to them or whatnot. But whenever you get boats and people in the water, there's other things that you have to be cognizant of, or it can be disastrous.
So do you have any, you know, safety checklist or anything like that for people who are preparing to go on a boat to be ready for whatever situation?
There's one, you know, first and foremost, I think, you know, whoever's going to be operating that boat needs to bring a clear head and clear mind, and no panic mode. You know, you gotta be thinking about it. You know, let people know before you go what your itinerary is or something. That way, if you don't show back up, there's somebody can go. Especially if you're and I never recommend boating alone, but there are people out there that do it. Those are the ones that really need to let somebody know where they're going, what's your general itinerary, and when they should return. So, you know, if something goes wrong and they don't show back up, then you have at least some starting points. That's always tough for a lot of emergency response folks, is they get information so-and-so's missing, but they don't know where they were supposed to go, and there. The rivers are long, lakes are numerous. You know, it always does good to because time is of the essence a lot of times. You know, you just could be stranded. And foul weather creates its own set of problems on that as well. So, but we do have some boating safety checklists out there to remind people of many things to do. I would like to share that with you here. Boating safety checklist, kind of some things on here. You know, safety equipment and aboard and accessible. By that, accessible life jackets. You have to, for adults, we're not mandatory wear because we're not 12 or younger. But we do have to have a life jacket available to us. Available doesn't mean stuffed underneath the seat cushions or stowed in a compartment under the bow of the boat. So if that boat would flip over and we would find ourselves in the water, unless that hatch flipped open or those jackets happen to float out from underneath the boat, they're not going to do us a bit of good unless we go back into the, you know, overturned boat to get them. If they were out on top or on the floor of the boat or something, then they would be what they term available. So and that's kind of a discretionary thing, you know. The key is to have them on board. The discretion comes with what's really available, and I don't want to get into details on that because that's kind of pretty subjective, especially with the boating safety officers that might be out there and come across. Some of them have their own criteria, and different states have their own criteria where you cross the line by, you know, on that part of things. So I don't like to get into that part of the weeds of it. Lines coiled. Have ample fuel in your tank prior to. A horn or some type of audible device. And again, know what's required for your boat, because certain length boats require some mandatory safety equipment. Whether your boat has a gasoline motor or stowed gas containers or not dictate a lot about the fire extinguishers that are required. And so basically I'll leave that to get a hold of your local boating laws and see what's required for yours. A lot of these state agencies, I know the ODNR watercraft folks had an open house this past spring, and they were doing boat safety checks, courtesy checks, what they call, where you could take your boat down there, they'd go over it with you. If you don't have it on there, you're not on the water, you're not going to get a fine, but they're going to explain to you what's needed and how they would look at your boat as if you would get pulled over on the water, and may save you a citation or something like that by just knowing before you go. And there were several people that took part of that. I know the West Virginia DNR has those types of boating safety checks, but they're, you know, sporadic as far as the region or the district and all that. You know, check your local paper, contact your local conservation officer or something like that, see what may be available for you. And I'd say if you went up to any of them on a casual basis, just asking the question, hey, I've got a boat, just got it, or haven't had a safety check done in a while. would that be something you guys could do if you had your boat there? I'd say he'd probably take the time to go over it with you and look at your safety equipment and see if it was adequate.
Yeah,
and
because
make sure-
sometimes people, they see an enforcement officer and they obviously immediately think the negative, when really they're just trying to keep people safe.
They're out there for your safety.
Yeah.
They've got the thankless job, I'd like to say. As any enforcement agency does a lot of times, under a lot of scrutiny these days. But they're there for your safety. It's a public safety position, and that's what people need to be grateful that they are looking out for that.
So if you have a question or you aren't sure about something, it would be a good idea to ask them.
Yeah.
They're there to help.
Again, that goes back to the know before you go. A little catchy cliche there, but
Yeah.
it has so many meanings,
Yeah, because that's the first thing people are going to say. Well, I didn't know I had to have a life jacket, and I didn't know
and
it had to
you
be accessible.
don't want to not know before something bad happens, or it doesn't bring people back, unfortunately.
Right.
Your failure to know. So.
Any other tips to keep people safe on the water this summer?
Oh, I like to, my standards for children are learn to swim, and this goes for everybody, I guess. No matter how old and how much we know, we can always learn new things. Learn to swim. Wear that PFD when you're going to be around the water, especially if you're not real comfortable in the water. And make sure it fits right, and it's the right type. There's many new types of life jackets out there on the market these days. Go out there and try some on. Now, you're going to find one, oh, it's too hot. Well, they make inflatables that work pretty good, and they're comfortable. They're lightweight. They make neoprene ones. They're in different materials that are comfortable, different fits. People have different body sizes and shapes. There's one out there probably that will be comfortable enough, but if it's going to save you, what's comfort? That's the way I would look at it. So, wear that life jacket and have one that fits right. 3, never swim alone. Always swim with a buddy. And especially for kids, if you're gonna plan on going down to the local pond or any body of water or whatever, make sure an adult knows before you go where you're gonna be. So one, if you come up missing, they know where to look. But again, it goes back, you're not gonna be there by yourself, and so hopefully, these are things that people can take. There's 4 little simple things that I think, if we all practiced them and taught our children those things, that we could reduce these drowning statistics even more.
All right. Well, thanks so much for talking with us today.
Oh, not a problem. Been my pleasure. Thank you.